So do you really need brushes to get a whole face of makeup put on? I don't think so. I think all you need is sponges. So I'm gonna do a whole face using only sponges. Hi guys, my name is Bobby and welcome to Mindful Midlife, where we do all things beauty, health, and lifestyle for the over 50 woman. Today's video is obviously all about beauty, and I am going to show you that you can get all of your face put on with not using one brush. Okay, I kind of lied. My mascara technically has a brush, but that's it. Couple things about sponges. First off, you can use them dry, you can use them wet. When they are wet, they are very bounceable and they double in size. I use the Beaky sponge. I get it on Amazon, and you can see how much bigger this one is. This one's moistened. What I do is I put it under water, obviously squeeze the excess, and then I take a rag and I literally press it in between like that, so I get most of the moisture out. I don't want it to be sopping wet. So if you have it dry, what it's going to do is it's going to soak up all of your foundation. If you've wet it down and squeezed out the excess and everything, it will not absorb all of that foundation and you'll use far less foundation. So I'm gonna put on foundation. This is the Essence Pretty Natural Foundation. I'm not even sure if this is the right, I am, as you can see, a darker on my skin than my face. I do tan my face, but because I wash it so much, it gets lightened much faster than the rest of my body, and this is self-tanner, not the actual suntan. So this color is Cool Chai number 80, but I honestly don't know if this is the right color, but we'll find out. It looks dark. This is a very natural finish, very light coverage. Maybe you could build it to medium a bit, but I'm not sure. But this is one of my favorite foundations because it is so natural, hence the name, and it is, and this color is okay, maybe a little light for me. Oop, a little bit much. So I'm gonna put it all over my face. What was I gonna say? Oh, it doesn't crease. I need to finish my sentences. It doesn't crease. At least it didn't before. Let's see if it doesn't again. Okay, so I am using my Beaky sponge. You could use a real, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters because you wanna use a good sponge. I do not believe that you need to spend $20 on a sponge. So I think get a one that you like. It needs to be pliable, not hard, but everyone's very, very particular about their sponges. So find the one that you love and stick with it. But I do love the Beaky sponge. I'll link it below. So I've dotted it all over my face. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this end, the bouncy end, and I'm gonna give you some tips for using things dry, wet, when to use wet, when to use dry, when to use a mini one, when to not use a mini one. I'll give you all the details. Okay, so first I'm just going to bounce this all over my face. Actually, the color is pretty good because this is such a light coverage. The key to a sponge making it look good is to bounce lightly. You're not bouncing hard, you're bouncing lightly, and you're just kind of moving the product all over your face. Looking at yourself from far away, so I'm using not a close-up mirror right now, I'm using a far away one because I want to see, is the coverage look even? Get under your chin. This is the only place I actually rub. I'll do this with it. And then I do it a little bit more on the sides just because I want to make sure there's no distinct lines. But the rest of it, I bounce. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this down and I'm going to use a concealer. So this concealer is from Makeup Revolution. It's got a little sponge on it. I'm going to click it and I'm just going to put a little bit right on the here where it's my darkest. I'm not going to conceal a lot. I could totally use my fingers to blend this out, but I am going to use a smaller one. Can you use the big one? Yes. In fact, I'll use both. The big one, I just take the tip, I squeeze it, and I just kind of dab, not wipe, but dabbing. The little one is just a little bit easier. I don't have to squeeze it. I just use the tip. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this up a little bit because this foundation is very light. I want to build it a little bit. Oh, itchy nose, itchy nose. So I'm going to put a little bit more on my cheeks, my nose, and I'm gonna use the same sponge again. And then what I do is I go even lighter. I wanna just make it be a little bit less going into my sponge and more around my face. That's how I do the second layer. So ever so lightly, just moving the product around on my face. Get the tip of your nose. Then I'll take whatever's excess on here and go up to my forehead. Then I'm gonna turn it around and I'm gonna get right in my nose here. And again, don't wipe, press in. I'm gonna take it and just make sure the product got around my eyes. And again, I'm going to just wipe. So that's basic foundation 101 with your sponge. But that's typical. That's a typical way to use a sponge, I realize. I don't even set this foundation normally. This stuff is amazing. Now I'll look again and make sure I don't see settling in anywhere. I do know that the concealer does crease, so I'm gonna have to check on that. But this stuff boggles my brain. I wish it was a little bit more coverage. Okay, so I got my eyebrows on because obviously I'm not using a sponge to put my eyebrows on. But the next thing to do is to put some color on my eyelids. I like to have a little bit of color on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use a concealer. This is from Revolution Conceal and Hydrate. I'm just going to put on 2 little dabs, not much, just that much. And now I am going to use a sponge for this part, and I'm going to use a wet one, and I'm going to use one of these mini ones. Could I use this one? Yes. Is it much easier to do with this? Yes. Can you use a brush for this? Of course, but I have found that I actually like the sponge better. So I'm just going to take it and squeeze it, and then just dab my whole eyelid with the concealer. I don't have to be real precise because it's just covering the whole thing. What this does is it just makes it so my eyelid is all one color instead of having veins showing and things like that. So I'm just gonna dab it in there. The next thing I wanna do is to seal that and to set it. So I'm going to use this. This is just a single color. It's from Buxom. And this time, instead of using the wet one, I'm actually going to use a dry mini one. So you can see the difference. This is the same kind. The pink one is dry. You can say I've used it many times. And I am going to use this and just dab it in this and then just rub it all over the lid. It's very fast. And that's probably why I like this so much. And I'm still dabbing instead of rubbing. But then it just makes it so my eyelids look a little bit more uniform in color. Okay, I put on my mascara as well. Obviously, I don't use a brush for that. Well, I actually technically do use a brush, but it's a mascara brush. You can't use a sponge for that. Next thing I'm going to show you is I'm seeing some red coming through because I used a foundation that was so light, and I kind of don't like, I have hyperpigmentation right here and I have some redness, so I want to cover it up. I'm going to use a powder foundation to do that. Now, you would think you can't use a sponge for a powder foundation. The one I'm going to use is the IT Cosmetics Foundation, Celebration Foundation Illumination. I actually do like to use a sponge for this, and what I use is the Real Techniques, I'm not sure the technical name of this, but it's actually kind of fuzzy. I don't get this wet. It does say you can, but I think this is the best for doing powder foundation. I think this is just amazing. And I like to use powder foundation as kind of a second layer over like a regular liquid foundation. So this is a bit dark for me, so I'm not sure how it's going to look, but I'm just going to dab it in, kind of rub it in. And then I am going to, again, dab and just cover up some of the redness that I see. And you can rub a little bit too. But what this does is it makes it just a little bit more even. And I feel like this kind of fuzzy one works so good with powder foundation. So this is one of my favorite sponges, and I just always store this like this so I know this one is used for this one. It works great. The next thing I want to do is to do some contouring. So I'm going to use a cream contour stick. This is Physicians Formula, their sculpting bronzer, and I love this thing. It's a very good product. Okay, so I'm going to use it just to contour right there a little bit and right there a little bit. I'm going to use the same sponge, but one's going to be dry and one's going to be wet or moistened. So obviously the smaller one is the dry one because it gets big with wetness. So let's start with wet first. And I'm just going to take the tip and this kind of dab, and you will see it blend pretty fast. I'm not going to blend it the whole way, only because I'm going to have more blending to do. So I want to be able to have a little bit of play time with it. Now this one's dry. I'm going to use the tip again. A little bit more difficult dry, but it's certainly doable. They're both blended in, but they're not completely blended in. Now let's do some contouring up here. So I'm going to do this and up here just a little bit more, and I'm going to use the dry one. It's just so easy with a sponge. I'm just amazed by it every time. The next thing I'm going to do is to use some blush. I'm going to use this. It's ColourPop Sticks blush, and I love this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw it on my cheek like that. It looks pretty intense, but I'm going to use this, the wet one, and then just blend it in. And with this, because it's a cream, I am kind of pulling it. Not a lot, but I'm pouncing and pulling a little bit. I love that color. And you just want to make sure if it gets a little intense, you can pounce out a little bit more. So that's just so pretty. Now I'm going to do it with a dry one on the left side. So draw it on again, and now I'm going to use the dry. It's a little bit faster with the dry one for the blush. If it scares you to just put this right on your cheek, you can go ahead and put this on here. What I would recommend is do this and play with it a little bit. Put it on the end like that. Use your hand and then just kind of go, okay, how much color payoff do I get like that? And then you can practice on your hand before you put it on your face. If I do use a brush to put my cream foundation on, which I do that, I'll use a stipple brush and I'll swirl this in and I'll put it on. Sometimes I get a little intense. What I'll do is I will take my sponge that I used my foundation on and then just kind of tap it out, and it will kind of tame down that blush and it'll make it be not so bright. Let's say you want to use a bronzer that is powder and not cream. You could do the same thing. What I would do is I would use this kind of the fuzzy sponge again, whatever its name is, the fuzzy sponge that I used the powder foundation on. I would use it on my bronzer as well. This is the e.l.f. one, the primer infused e.l.f. one. And I would just kind of put it in like that and then maybe use it to do some contouring on my chin, go underneath. And it does the same thing as if you were doing a brush. Okay, I finished out the look with a L'Oreal Age Perfect lipstick number 218, which is Radiant Bronze. So it's one of my favorite lipsticks. And the look is done. So I did not use one brush throughout this whole thing. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of a tutorial on the best way to use sponges. You don't have to buy expensive brushes. You just don't. I will see you guys in the next video. God bless. All right, so if you've gotten this far, this is the did you know portion of my videos. So this could have to do with the video and it might not have anything to do with the video. Did you know that you can move your cursor on your phone just by moving your hand around? Some of you may already know this, but I do know that there are some people who are just finding this out. Let me show you how. Okay, so let's say you've written a note, but right here I spelled people wrong, and I want to get my cursor up there. So if you want to get your cursor up there, you press hard press, and then look how if I move my finger around, it'll move it exactly where I want to go off, and then I can fix my misspelled word. So just take it, again, press it, and you'll see the cursor show up, and you can go anywhere you want on your screen. Isn't that good to know? Now you know.